I'm Steve Lindell, your host of the program, and my guest is 6th District Representative Greg Pence, who is talking to me via telephone. We have talked in person, sir. We have talked on Zoom. We have talked on what we call the POTS system, the plain old telephone. You can do it all, sir.
Well, Steve, bless your heart.
Oh.
You're very kind. I'm actually not that talented, but it's always good to talk to you or be with you anytime.
Oh, thank you very much for the time. Let's talk about a couple of notes here. Let's see. In D.C., critical transportation infrastructure bill. When was that, or when is that going to be?
Yeah, that last week, about 2 weeks ago, the Democrats introduced a transportation infrastructure bill. I am on that committee, Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and last week on Wednesday and Thursday, we had a 14-hour per day, what's called a markup in the committee, and then a final vote on that bill, as well as the submission of a Republican alternative. And I introduced, Steve, 14 amendments. I kind of sum them up a little bit in a second, but that bill that we voted on and we discussed and we debated was a $500 billion transportation bill. And, you know, we've talked about remote voting and proxy, and I'm sorry to say there were 17 Republicans and 2 Democrats sitting in that committee room out of 68 U.S. congressmen, and the rest of them were zooming it in, phoning it in, my opening remarks, I chastised my peers for doing that. I completely disagree. $500 billion bill, and some of them. Let me tell you some funny stories.
Please do.
One person up on the Zoom screen took us on a golf cart ride while they were at the committee hearing. Another person was in the car driving now, and looking at their iPhone, and then took us to some rally, some type of political event, and another person took us on a boat. Oh. And many of them were not suited up with a suit and tie like is appropriate when you're representing the people of the Indiana 6th District. So anyway, having got that off my chest,
whoa. You don't want to drop any names, do you? Because it's even more fascinating if you do that. Probably
well,
not.
There's a common, the third word in their name. They have a first name, they have a second name, and the third name would be Democrat. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
But it is true. Okay.
I got it.
I never want to get personal, Steve. That's not my style.
I understand.
But I'll be there every time we have a committee hearing, and I'll be there every time we have vote. Provided I'm able to or healthy. That type of thing.
Sure.
Stuff happens, but I'm gonna do the job of the Indiana 6th District congressperson. So,
what of some of the amendments that you proposed? Could you share with us some of those?
Yeah. So I kind of the ones that maybe the listeners are really keen on. Modernizing Agriculture Transportation Act. I've actually introduced this before. That's where farmers have a truck or two, and they just want to seasonally haul their grain or their livestock to the grain bins or the slaughterhouses, and they're not able to do that without complying with very strict federal regulations. I wanted to give them a little relief from the heavy regulations there. I've done that before. 3 rural broadband bills. You and I have talked about this on the show. Now we have telehealth, we have teleeducation, and of course we have had to deal with tele-law enforcement and fire. So we really need to get rural broadband. I will tell you, while this bill, infrastructure bill, will pass the House this week when I go back and vote, it won't be taken up by the Senate, but I think we're going to get some rural broadband bills and some broadband bills done. I hope sometime in the first part of July, because that need has expanded during the pandemic and the economic crisis that we've had. So I'm excited about this. And then another one, just one of the many, Rural American Lines Act. Not only did I offer an amendment, but I got a Democrat to co-sponsor a bill along with a Senator Braun is going to do this in the Senate, and this bill allocates additional grant money to communities for rail crossing to upgrade and fix. We go from eligibility of $7,500 per crossing to $100,000 per crossing. And I feel good. The bill's not going to get passed, but I think that my Rural Act, hopefully that'll come to the floor next week or the week after, and we'll get that passed as a standalone bill, because we all know we need to, as I have talked, in Muncie, talking to a number of folks up there, including the mayor, where you'd literally have railroads parked or trains parked in the middle of a street, and kids were climbing up and around them. And so, adding this grant eligibility to a number of communities is the right thing to do as well.
My guest is Greg Pence, 6th District Representative. Let's talk about, I should have brought this up first because it's so topical. I understand you were in Tulsa, Oklahoma over the weekend.
Yes, sir. And, people ask me, how many of these rallies have you been to? And I go, well, I don't even know more. I got on the trail to help my brother out about 5 years ago, and I've attended many as what's called a surrogate. I go out and I do media hits and, talk to folks and things like that. Mm-hmm. It was exciting to be there. It really was. You hear a lot of negatives, but let me tell you some of the positives. 5 million people followed it online. That is a enormous record. So that'll be interesting to see. I thought the president did a fabulous job of messaging testing, and you'll see some of the reports are there were only 6,200 people in the 19,000 arena. That can't be true. That was well over half full. I believe it was closer to 14 or 15,000 were there, and it was peaceful. And that was good news. What
was it like outside? Did you happen to see or experience anything outside with peaceful protesters or otherwise?
No, I didn't. I was a little surprised at that, Steve. Now, they had cordoned the area off quite a bit.
Which is typical whenever the president goes somewhere.
Yeah, and I just didn't see a lot. I'm going to maybe guess that some of the protester groups thought it would be better to come out there and infringe on other people's free speech rights while they're allowed to protest all across the country.
Let's talk about the other notion that's being bandied about politically and also socially, and this idea and notion to defund police departments. You've told me before your stance on that is pretty darn clear. You're not in favor of defunding the police.
No, I'm way past not in favor. Thanks for asking me that. I'm 100% against defunding the police. In fact, we need to provide more support to the police, and I'm doing that. When I go out there this week, I am a co-sponsor of the Justice Act, also known as the Scott Stauber Act. That's Senator Scott and Representative Pete Stauber, good friend of mine, by the way. He and I actually go to church every morning. He's a good man. He was a law enforcement officer for 23 years, and this bill, it provides grants and funding for law enforcement agencies for cameras, body cameras. It increases accountability, transparency, and training. Now, we live in Indiana, and here in the 6th District, we know our law enforcement. I went to high school with them. I grew up with them. They live down the street from me, and they know me. We don't have the problem that some of these disconnected big city urban communities have, but I do believe that training is something most law enforcement agencies would be happy to get more of. In fact, last week and the week before, I spent a number of days, 4 days, meeting with different law enforcement agencies in the 6th District, and they're all for that. What they are very concerned about is increased liabilities for themselves. This bill does not reduce that protection when they have acted in an appropriate, reasonable manner to protect their life or the health and safety of other people.
And with that, we are out of time, but we really appreciate your time. Greg Pence, so good to talk to you, and look forward to it again very soon.
All right. Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You also. Bye-bye, Greg.